During the Cold War, the Soviet Union built a bunker in Templevo, Poland, which sits near the border between Poland and Germany. The bunker was meant to house nuclear weapons, to be used in the case of all-out war between the Soviet Union and the West. For reasons of secrecy and security, the weapons bunker was built underground and then covered with soil, and to fully conceal the bunker, trees were planted in the overlying soil to grow and obscure the facility with their canopy. Now, as a matter of nature taking its course, the soil became colonized by wood ants. These incoming wood ants built their colony on top of the bunker, specifically over a ventilation pipe. Over time, the facility rusted and rotted away, and the metal that was covering the ventilation pipe degraded until holes began to break through. This hole into the ventilation pipe would consume thousands of worker ants from the colony, who were unlucky enough to fall in. The ants would come near and then fall into the hole, tumbling down the ventilation pipe into the weapons bunker below, and there, they would be unable to get out. But curiously, these fallen ants did not immediately die. Instead, in the bleak darkness of the weapons bunker, they persisted, and they tried to rebuild a colony. They tried to keep living as best they could, despite living in the literal shadows of the infrastructure of nuclear war. These ants were able to survive and persist for years, building a unique kind of nest, unlike anything else that scientists have ever seen. The subterranean colony was first discovered when some Polish zoologists came into the bunker to study a bat colony. Although it was technically illegal to go into the nuclear weapons bunker, scientists are rarely discouraged when it comes to the pursuit of knowledge, and they snuck into the small, confined spaces, only to encounter the rustling activity of the thousands of entrapped ants. The things they saw were so weird that the zoologists doubted whether or not they could even call this population a colony. You see, the nuclear bunker had no food. It had no light. It's cold and barren, with far more concrete and metal than soil or wood. The ants, it appears, were defined by near perpetual starvation. In this stressful, bleak condition, the pseudo-colony could hardly function. They produced no queens. There were no male drones to provide genetic variety through sexual reproduction, and there weren't any offspring. The ants down here in the bunker were not reproducing. They were just female worker ants who happened to fall down the ventilation pipe and get stuck down here. And with nothing better to do, they just kept doing their job as best they could to build a colony. The researchers have now been observing the ant colony for several years, and yet they haven't been able to identify what the ants are eating. It's possible, although unlikely, they say, that the ants are engaging in cannibalism, or cannibalistic scavenging. It's more likely that the ants are feeding off of the bat guano, although this too has not been confirmed. In their new research paper describing this strange situation, the researchers say, quote, "The wood ant colony described here, although superficially looking like a functioning colony with workers teeming on the surface of the mound, is rather an example of survival of a large amount of workers trapped within a hostile environment in total darkness, with constantly low temperatures and no ample supply of food. The continued survival of the colony through the years is dependent on new workers falling in through the ventilation pipe. The supplement of workers more than compensates for the mortality rate of workers, such that, through the years, the bunker workforce has grown to the level of big, mature, natural colonies." Unquote. Now that last part is really interesting. Because these ants aren't reproducing, there's no queen and there's no drones, the total population can only sustain itself when more ants from the surface fall down the ventilation pipe. Here, they join their trapped brethren, who are doomed to a slow death of starvation. Unable to grasp the dire hopelessness of their situation, the ants just keep going through the motions, building a nest replete with tunnels, caverns, and graveyards where ant waste is disposed of. In this case though, because they don't really have access to that much food, the waste isn't so much fecal matter as it is the millions of tiny ant corpses that have accumulated over the years. Now, this whole situation is extremely fascinating, if somewhat bleak and grim. It would seem that humans are not the only species whose society has been twisted and brutalized by the bitter darkness of the Cold War.